Naveen, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really awesome to have you on because I've been following your story and it's such an interesting one. And your motto is our only limit is our imagination, which is astounding. Now, where along your wonderful life journey did you have the inspiration to create Viome? Was that a sudden thing out of necessity, frustration? Where did that come from?
Like anything else in life, people somehow think there is this magical moment that happens where you suddenly become a different person. And I think what I find actually in reality, life is a continuum. It is constantly building on top of each thing. So one previous thing leads you to something else, and then you eventually build on it. And as the saying goes, the last straw that breaks the camel's back. It's not the last straw. It is the cumulative stuff that really has happened all the way in the past. So I really think that every interaction we have with someone, everything we see in life, every time we think about a problem, every time we think about the frustration, they all build on top of each other. And one day you wake up and say, enough is enough, and go do something about it, right? And I think, and then most of the time we go back and rewrite the corporate history to come back with a movement that actually changed all that. But it's rarely true. So if we go back and look at the thing, it's rarely true because the last of a lot of these legends are actually made after the success has happened, right?
Isn't it funny that most stories are kind of like, it boils down to one thing they want because that's what marketing wants. It makes it easier. But the story is usually a lifetime, if not numerous lifetimes of other people also, right? And it's that culmination that gets to there. But Viome really is a different company in many ways. Can you explain a little bit what made you get to that point where you said, all right, I really want to do this? I mean, microbiome has been something that's been growing in popularity, you could say, genetic testing, but the way you went about it was really unique.
So I think, Casper, so let me just take a framework here because I really think that's going to help the people who are listening to it. So, as you know, I was behind me, you can see all the stuff from the space here, all the astronauts, all the meteorites on the sites here. But, I was finishing up this project on living on the moon. And, it occurred to me that what should I do next that could fundamentally improve the lives of billions of people on the planet Earth? And, so I have this framework that I go through anytime I start a company or a project. So first thing you ask yourself is, why this, why now, and why me? And if you can go through that, it fundamentally change, you can apply that to almost anything. So why this? The number one thing you have to ask yourself is, God forbid, I am actually successful in doing what I'm about to be doing. Is it going to really help a billion people live a better life? The answer to that is no. Then you really have to ask yourself that if you're going to be dedicating 10 years of your life to something, and do you really want to dedicate your life to something that's not going to move the needle for many people, right? Because also in my opinion, it's easier to start an audacious company than to start something small. It's because best and the brightest in the world want to work for something that actually is meaningful. The best and the brightest want to work on the toughest problem. They want to work on something that will make them significant, that will make them, create some type of their own legacy. Right. So if you have people who are just absolutely in the top of their game, what do they want? They want to create a legacy. They want to work on something that fundamentally changes things, right? So give them that type of an audacious idea. They're willing to come and join you on your mission. So that's the why this part. Why now is really something we all have to think about. Despite every one of us thinking that it is really my brilliant vision and, my team and, my execution, all that thing. And by the way, don't get me wrong, all that matters. But the number one determination of success is timing. Right? Despite what anyone tells you, if your timing is wrong, it doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how brilliant your idea is, the timing is really the most meaningful. So there have been a lot of studies done. The number one determinant of success is timing. Right? Facebook wasn't the first social network. We know there was MySpace before, there was Friendster. The timing was just happened to be right. And you can go through literally every one of the successful company. It is a timing. So now, what about that timing? And that's really, it's not by you get lucky in timing. And that's what I think I want people to know. People think timing is luck. No, timing is not luck. Timing is actually extremely determinable when it is the right time. So, so in our case, when I started to apply these things to Viome, so I say, God forbid, our mission was very simple. What if we could prevent and reverse chronic diseases? And the reason we picked on the chronic diseases is it is not something you're born with. Right. It is not something that is, you wake up in the morning and say, you know what, honey, I was out with the boys last night. I think I might have caught diabetes. Well, you don't catch diabetes. It's not like you say, honey, I think I caught obesity last night. No, honey, you have been a fat for a very long time, so don't you worry about it. My point is, you don't catch autoimmune diseases. You don't catch these diseases. Right. You develop these diseases over a long period of time. So in my opinion, this is a problem that is preventable and reversible. And I'm going to come back to it in a second here, why all that happens. So in our case, we say, what if we can solve this problem? And my first thing was, is it going to help 1 billion people live a better life? The answer was yes. So my first checkbox was done. Why this? Why now was very interesting. I said, to solve this problem, there are 3 things need to happen. You have to be able to digitize the analog body. So our body is all analog, and then you take these fluids from our analog body, call them saliva and blood and urine and stool. These are all analog. How do you convert them how can you digitize the human body? Because once you can digitize the human body, then you say, you know what, now I can do something else with it. So the first thing was, is the timing now the right timing? The cost of digitizing the human body, the cost of sequencing can't be $1,000. It can't even be $100. It really needs to come down to $10 for this to be really massively successful. And 4 years ago, when I started to see the trend, it was pretty obvious to me. It was on the exponential curve down. That means even though it was over $1,000, I knew by the time we launch a product, it's going to get down to $10. So that was the number one thing. The second part was, once you digitize the human body, you're going to have this massive amount of data. To process this data, a decade ago, you would require probably one of the fastest supercomputer to do that. And you have to say, wait a sec, I'm not going to have access to this fastest supercomputer. Is there a processing power now that exists, that's available to everyone, that you can go out and process a massive amount of data, and cost of processing has to be close to zero? And guess what? AWS was starting to come along, and you started to see you can 5,000 cores at AWS for the cost of a couple of $100, and you can literally start to process massive amount of data. That was good. The third thing that needs to happen is, now that you have all this massive amount of data that you process, how do you decipher it? How do you make sense of all this data? That means the AI or the artificial intelligence had to be powerful enough to do that. So idea was, is the cost of digitization low enough? Is the cost of decoding low enough? And the cost of deciphering powerful enough for you to do that? And the answer to all 3 was, timing is now. And that's the reason 4 years ago we say, time is now for me to do something about it. The third part is really the most interesting part, which is why me? And now, as I think you pointed out, it's first thing I do before I start any company is, I am an information junkie. I know nothing about this problem. I am not a doctor. I'm not a physician. In fact, I don't even recall my high school biology classes anymore. But the point was, hey, what if I could, understand what is going on? Why do people have chronic diseases? And one of the things I learned is, you never, ever want to read one book on a subject, because if you read that book on a subject, the author's view becomes your view. What I do is, I read 12 books on that subject. And guess what happened? Now you have 12 different views of the problem. And guess what happened? You create the 13th view, which is your own, by connecting all the dots. And that is the most meaningful information. The second part of this puzzle really is, I started to look at all the research papers. So I probably read 1,000 research papers. And the reason everyone who is starting an industry should do that is, that tells you what is the most cutting edge stuff that is starting to happen now. It's going to take 15, 20 years before it gets into the practice, but you want to see where the trends are. And it was pretty obvious 4 years ago. Everyone was talking about something in the research, this microbiome thing, and people were talking about how microbiome is responsible for depression and anxiety and obesity and diabetes and autoimmune diseases and all the cancers and blah blah blah. And Alzheimer's starts in the gut, and the Parkinson's starts in the gut. I have no idea. I'm thinking, oh my God, there's something about this gut microbiome that seems to be happening here. And then you suddenly have this eureka moment. Oh, I think I found the problem. Guess what? That's where you have the oh shit moment. I think oh, this can't be the problem. That, as you mentioned, the 10 companies who are doing the microbiome analysis, and the problem doesn't seem to be solved. That means either you are a moron or there is a problem lies somewhere else. And this is now, so coming back to my third thing, why me? Yeah. It is, as an entrepreneur, it is not your job to have all the right answers. Your job is to ask the right questions. And this is the trick. What questions are you asking that is different from what everyone else is asking? And because the question you ask is the problem you solve, right? So in this case, I realized that every single microbiome company was doing exactly the same thing. They were asking the question about what organisms exist in people's gut. And they thought if they knew what organisms exist in people's gut, they'll be able to say what causes diabetes, what causes obesity. And in my mind, I don't know what these microorganisms are, but I thought, what if these microorganisms are like human beings? You could have thousands of different people with different names doing exactly the same thing that causes the disease. So you can look at two people with diabetes with completely different organisms producing exactly the compound that causes the diabetes. What if that was true? And I thought, what if the same organism produces completely different in your gut that is actually helpful, and in my ecosystem, being in this a chaotic ecosystem, it produces something that is actually harmful? What if it's again like human beings? I am at work, I am an entrepreneur, I go home, I'm a dishwasher. What changed? Not me. The environment changed, right? And what if that's exactly what happens? So look at the things like Akkermansia or C. diff. C. diff can actually produce butyrate in some people, or it could be actually infectious and become pathological and become virulent and actually cause you to die, right? So point is, here you have a same organisms doing completely different things. So I say, what if the problem doesn't lie in who is there? The problem really needs to be, what are they doing? And what if we can understand what is going on and what they're producing, what is being expressed is the only thing that matters. And by the way, the same thing I thought has to happen in the human side as well. So not just the gut microbiome, on the host side, the human genes don't change. So you and I both know that if we do a DNA test today, and then we gain 200 pounds, has our DNA changed? The answer is no. You become diabetic, has your DNA changed? No. And you can literally go through every disease. You become depressed, your DNA doesn't change. So if your DNA is not changing, how can you identify the problem by looking at the DNA? Because it doesn't change when you get the disease. Or worse yet, when you have a disease that goes into remission or relapse, like autoimmune diseases like IBD, your DNA is not like one day when you're in remission, your DNA changes, and one day when you have relapse, your DNA changes. It doesn't, right? What's changing is the expression of the genes are constantly changing. And I thought, what if the gene expression is really the way to solve this problem, not the looking at the gene themselves? That simple thing is that it's the expression that matters, not the genes themselves. And believe it or not, it came from a really weird way of looking at this world, because when you are naive and you don't have the idea of how to look at what these genes are, I thought the genes are like thoughts in your mind. They can be good thoughts and they can be bad thoughts, right? But you can have all the bad thoughts in the world, just don't express them, and there's no crime, right? You can think about every bad thing, just don't do it, and you're totally fine, right? My point was, what if the genes are like that? You can have good genes and the bad genes. As long as you can make sure the bad ones are not expressed, you're in good shape, right? And so I thought, what if the expression is really the key? And interestingly, If you look at the human body, Casper, 99% of all the genes that are expressed are not our own. So our human genes that we get from our mom and dad, they express, give or take, about 22,000 protein coding genes. And if you look at the microbes in our mouth and in our gut and other organs, they collectively produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes. That means at best, we are approximately 1% human, right? Now, interestingly, you would think that if they control 99%, they would leave the 1% alone. It's like, fine, whatever. But no, not them. They, in fact, control that 1% epigenetically. So the things that they release in our gut, it gets absorbed in the blood. Either it methylates our genes or it acetylates our gene and increases the gene expression or suppresses the gene expression. So even there, they control everything that's expressed in our body. So one could argue that 99.9% is actually modifiable. And that's the point. Forget about how. That means 0.1% is determined by how we are born. 99.9% is something you and I can control. So when someone tells you your genes are your destiny and you have no control over your disease, you and I both know, unless people take responsibility for their own health, for their own action, it cannot ever happen that you cannot be sick. So sickness, that's why when we started the company, Casper, we said what? Viome. Imagine living in a world where illness is optional. We didn't say imagine a world where there is no illness. Because if we said that, what that tells you is that we have a power to eliminate the illness. We didn't say that. We said you have the power to make sure you don't get sick. That means our job is to educate you and tell you, what do you need to do? And you can say, you know what? Tough luck. I'm going to smoke. My answer is great. Enjoy your life. Right? My point is, so what I'm trying to say is, whether it is, now people talk about like aging, right? And we'll get to it in a second here. Aging is a chronic disease. By definition, you chronologically age, right? What if, just like any other disease, what if we understood what causes us to age? And if 99.9% of our things are modifiable, why can't we prevent aging? I mean, I'm not suggesting that you live forever, but you can increase your health span, not necessarily your lifespan. And to me, until you die, there is no reason for you to have to suffer from a chronic disease. You may not be able to increase your lifespan, but health span is something you can absolutely do. And we know, you and I both know people or hear about people who can be 100 years old and healthy as a horse. I don't know why they say that, because a lot of horses are sick too, but I mean,
it's a weird saying, right? Healthy as a horse. Maybe back in the day, horses were really, really healthy. I don't know.
A lot of these things, sometimes I wonder, done by the doorknob. Like, really? Why doorknob?
Doorknobs these days are very sophisticated and have like AI technology. So yeah, another one.
And people used to say, make it as simple as using a phone. And today's phone, you say, no, it's too complicated.
So make it really complicated is what they're saying, right? I mean, Naveen, so much of what you're saying makes sense to me. And I love it because I myself am an outsider to the medical world who works in medicine. And you're an outsider to the medical world also and doing this amazing stuff. And I agree. I give a talk on how we're asking the wrong questions. Yeah. In medicine, it's always, what do you have? And I'll just treat it. It's not, why do you have it? It's not empowering you to make your own decisions to help yourself like you are. But still, you talk about timing. It's been a very long time we've approached medicine this way. I'm not saying entrepreneurship or health or wellness. What is it that you feel in the medical field is holding people back from even embracing the Viome? Because I spoke with Momo and Guru, and they said we were doing fantastic things that medicine hasn't caught up with us yet somehow.
So, and again, Casper, people are going to think this is a very cynical way of looking at the world. But, if you look at it today, our medical industrial complex Everyone in the medical industrial complex makes money when you and I are sick. No one makes money when we are healthy. Right now, I'm not suggesting they are bad people. I am not suggesting they are evil people. But the fact is, their incentives are just misaligned. So imagine your doctor, who may be the nicest human being. If let's assume all his patients never get sick, how is he going to feed him and his family? Right? How the hospital is going to survive? How is the pharma companies look at the chronic diseases as a lifetime subscriber?
Right.
25-year-old person gets diabetes and they probably have a button that says, ka-ching, lifetime subscriber coming up, right? You got an autoimmune disease. Oh my God, big ka-ching. Right?
Exactly. And you don't even know that you're paying for it because it's taken out of healthcare insurance, right? So it's almost the best business model you have.
Yeah. And here's the worst part. They never want to cure a disease. They want to suppress the symptom. So now think about it, how we do it. Autoimmune diseases, as opposed to trying to figure out, wait a sec, why is the immune system attacking our body? Well, is it something, maybe a bacteria or virus that is mimicking the protein that is equivalent of something in our body? Shouldn't we be doing something there rather than, what do? They give you the drug to do what? To suppress the immune system. Hold on for a second. Why did the nature have an immune system if you're going to suppress it? By suppressing the immune system, what happened? Now you are open to all the infections.
Yes.
Right? And it is mind-boggling when you start to think about what happens now. So now you have these people who are constantly for the lifetime on this drug. Now they get more sick because now their immune system is weak. And guess what? Now they make even more money from them, right? So every chronic disease, when they give you, give me the ill, I'll give you the pill. That pill is not benign. That pill, one pill causes 3 more symptoms.
Sure.
I don't know why magically they have pills for those 3 symptoms also. And by the way, those 3 pills cause 9 symptoms.
9 symptoms,
and
yes.
now they have pills for 9. And by the time you get to our age, we are popping more pills than blueberries. And that's a problem right there.
What is it, 12, I think now the average of the American we're taking? Wow.
My point is that, so you're asking me why. So the idea really is that unless someone rethinks this idea of how we incent the medical industrial complex, these are going to continue to happen. But here's the trick. We don't need to do that. It is us. At the end of the day, you and I and millions of others, what if we can empower them to take control of their own health? What if we can make them the CEO of their own health? And here is wonderful thing happen. And anytime there is a disaster or devastation, there is a silver lining in the cloud.
Right.
COVID, in my opinion, COVID has done wonders for healthcare system. And here is why.
Yeah, please.
It has pushed the innovation at least a decade ahead of where it would be. Like telehealth would not exist for a decade, but for COVID. And guess what? The biggest change I see now. It used to be when I used to say, you know what? I don't care. When I get sick, I'll go to the hospital and somebody will take care of me. With the COVID, I'm thinking, wait a sec. I don't want to catch COVID. The last thing I want to do is to go to the hospital and to die. Right? So what has really happened is it is starting to bring the responsibility for our individual health on us. We say, I'm going to wear a mask. I am going to do the social distancing. I am going to do all these things to protect myself. It is no longer let my doctor take care of me.
Right.
Now that once you start to do that, guess what? You cannot buy the immune supplements today on Amazon. Everything is sold out. You cannot make them fast enough. What's going on? Individuals are starting to say, I got to take care of myself. I got to protect myself. And I think to me, Casper, what I love about you and what you do, you realized that a decade ago, your dad realized that decades ago, that guess what? There is a power to nature. The food is in medicine. And it's not like you and your dad were something you invented it. Hippocrates said 2,500 years ago, let food be thy medicine.
Yes.
Guess what? In India and Ayurveda, they have been talking about that for 5,000 years. Chinese medicine has been talking about 5,000 years. And we talk about this gut microbiome and fecal transplant is such a new thing. In China, they have been doing that for the thousands of years. They used to call them yellow soup, right? When somebody got sick, they gave them a yellow soup, right? That was a fecal matter, right? The point I'm trying to make is that at the end of the day, we are coming to a point where I believe in the next decade, Casper, individuals are going to start to take control of their health. And what is going to happen in the healthcare industry is what happened in every other industry, which is called consumerization of healthcare. That means no longer I have travel agents booking my travel. No longer I have a stockbroker buying a stock for me. And no longer I'm going to have a primary care doctor telling me what to do or what might be happening. I go there today, I have a cough or I'm feeling cold. Oh, you might have a flu. Well, guess what? The flu. It's not a flu. Oh, do you have a COVID? You don't have a COVID. Oh, maybe you have a pneumonia. Oh, yeah, pneumonia. Sure. But they have no idea.
No idea.
Guess what? And guess what's going to happen? Now we're going to have these at-home tests, which are going to have all the information about us. And no longer, today, obviously, you get the at-home test, you do the test, and you're going to get analyzed, and you're going to get the information. AI is going to look at the thing, it's going to tell you in the app what is going on. And I'll tell you what we do at Viome later. But if you go back and look, if you think about in the next decade, what's going to happen? Your toilets are going to be analyzing your stool, your urine, every single day. Your mirror is going to be analyzing your body every day. Your tiles at home are going to be measuring your sweat, measuring your weight. All the systems around you are going to be analyzing your voice to say, wait a sec, I think Casper might be depressed. Oh my God, look at Casper, he's walking slow. Maybe he's sick. Or look, when he woke up, it wasn't exactly the same weight he put on the first step. There is something wrong here. The way he's speaking is something is not right here. So my point is constantly being analyzed and looking at the stuff and telling you what to do, right? And that world would be where you will become in control. And it's not you versus the AI. It is you and AI working in conjunction together to make your life better. And a lot of people somehow have this fear of artificial intelligence. Oh my God. Now, guess what happens? The AI is no different than what we use today. So people were afraid of robots. People don't realize dishwasher is a robot, right? It does your dishes. Your Google Maps are your AI. In the beginning, people say, oh, I know how to go there. I'm going to make a right turn. That's a quicker short. And Google is telling me to the left. How dumb Google is. You go right, you get stuck in the traffic. You say, holy shit, should have listened to Google. Next time, when Google says turn left, you're saying, whatever, dude, I'm turning left, right? Point is, suddenly the AI is no longer to control you, but to help you live better, to tell you, hey, you really enjoyed this restaurant. Here is another one to try. And you really love it. Next time you're believing it, right? And that to me is really what's going to happen is AI and humans are going to start to merge as an entity. That means I may not know a lot about a particular subject, but I'm going to trust my AI to be able to be my agent and guide me and recommend the things to me that I trust, because it's a trusted AI that I believe is there to help me. And then we become this symbiotic relationship with AI.
You know, Naveen, I'm totally on board with you about being bullish and excited for what the next decade has to come, because you could look at the stats, and I do this sometimes too, as to why our companies are so necessary. And you look at over 60, 70, and I think it's now close to 80% of Americans are chronically ill, right? And we're going in this negative trend where it's younger and younger people are getting sicker and sicker. And so that could be a dreadful scenario that you get very fearful for. But I believe that brings up opportunities for entrepreneurs and disruptors, you, me, others, so many others out there doing brilliant work, helping to change that and really change the whole industry. But
so Casper, before I let you go there, I'm going to tell you what is it. I want people to know what you are working on, because I am super excited about the work you do. So before I tell you about what I do, I want people to hear from you about the work you're doing in this space to help people with chronic diseases and get the root cause of it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Naveen, for allowing me to do that, because I think we're on the same paths here and a lot. And we'll jump into the idea of personalization first off. And then the idea of using a more comprehensive approach that taps into a global system and also looks at the past, present, and future to help the patient or the person dealing with any illness, or even those that want to prevent illness in the future, to address anything before it happens and address it at its root cause so that we can go back to self-healing, not managing. So a big approach that I've grown up with my whole life, being around medicine, traveling the world with my father, is really seeing what is out there in the world that can help anybody to reclaim their health. So my father was an anesthesiologist, a surgeon. He became a larger chief of pain medicine, a large hospital, but incredibly frustrated with his results. He would stitch someone up. He would do things. He would give them medications. They would get better, and a year later, they'd be back worse. And he saw the revolving door, and he said, there has to be something better. So out of frustration and necessity, he started to travel the world and wanted to see what else is out there that can help my patients to restore their health. I didn't get into medicine to give people crutches and just little patchwork. I want to see them actually better and live their whole lives healthy. As you mentioned earlier, too many of us get sick and just maintain for the last 30, 40 years of our life. So we're living longer, poor quality. When in reality, we should be disease-free to the day we die at 100 or so. And that's my goal. And that's what we're trying to do with innovative medicine, is bring everyone to the table. Conventional medicine, spiritual practitioners, cutting-edge AI technology, Viome, everyone to the table and say, what is best for the patient? Put the patient in the middle and then give them all the options working together. Leave egos aside. In medicine, that's difficult. But bring everyone together and say, okay, you need some psycho-emotional therapies because we're seeing that's wrong. You need some IV nutrition. You need personalized lifestyle changes, diet changes. You need some IV this, that. There's so many wonderful, wonderful things out there in the world, spanning, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, European biological medicine, shamanic medicine out of, South America. But to bring it together and then apply it in a very personalized way to each patient, we've seen that you could absolutely reverse these complex chronic conditions. And you could get someone truly back to healthy, not managing their symptoms, not feeling 50, 60%, back to 100%. And that's our goal, is to keep looking out there in the world, keep searching, keep seeking how we can improve medicine and the results, and turn the whole industry, rather than managing of symptoms and disease, to true health restoration. And that's what we've been doing. My father's been doing for over 30 years. We've been at this almost 2 decades now, trying to teach doctors, trying to teach patients, reach more people, help more people. Because without health, there is nothing. We are not functioning as a society. We are not productive. I mean, the health of us also is the health of this earth, right?
Yes.
We are the microbiome, in a sense, of planet Earth. Yes. And so if we are unhealthy, the earth is unhealthy. So it's such an important thing. And it's something that I always seek out, these innovators, these other people doing in the same field, such as yourself. And I get so excited because we're on the same path. So that's what innovative medicine is about. It's about changing medicine, curing the incurable, and doing it in this really comprehensive, holistic, and personalized manner. And I truly do believe this is where medicine has to go. And I think it's a great uphill battle. There's a lot of people stuck in an old paradigm of looking at things. But with the help of others, such as yourself, and so many people now catching on. And I do agree, COVID and others, as devastating as they've been, silver linings. People are now saying, I need to prioritize my health. I'm not going to wait till I get unhealthy and then be susceptible to possibly being a casualty of this. I want to empower myself. And that's the beauty of this type of an approach, and using things like Viome and applying this type of medical approach, innovative medicine, is it gives you your power back. And so that's why I'm so thrilled with things like Viome and others, because it's about empowering, right?
So first of all, Casper, my hat's off to you for what you're doing, because this to me is the most innovation, the biggest innovation in the medical industry is, as you mentioned, personalization. To me, the idea of people buying a generic food or generic healthcare or generic anything is going to go away. So in my humble opinion, in the next 10 to 20 years, there is no longer people are going to have a Kellogg K sitting there, and you pick up the box and come. It's any company that's not personalizing is going to die a slow death or a fast death. Choice is there, but they're going to die. So everything is going to be about me, whether it is the food being 3D printed for me. My water is personalized with my supplements, with my prebiotic, with my probiotic. My yogurt is personalized for me. Every single thing that I buy is going to be personalized for me. My clothes are going to be tailor-made for me, whether they're 3D printed or not, right? I'll be able to get my clothes 3D printed exactly to the thing that I need. And, it's not going to be something, oh my God, you get a tailor-made suit. Everybody's going to have a tailor-made suit, right?
Everyone's going to look really good.
I think that is the key, is going to be the personalization.
Right.
And to do personalization, you will need data. So I really think the biggest innovation in the healthcare is going to come not from the healthcare industry, but it's going to come from the outsider who are bringing the ideas and the things. So when people talk about thinking outside the box, it is not that. It is thinking inside a different box. So, people like us are saying, wait a sec, this is not a healthcare. This is a big data problem, right? Can I understand every biochemical activity that's happening in our body? So if I know everything, every biochemistry of our body, and then I can apply AI, I think it's just simply a math and a chemistry. What is the hard problem here, right?
Yep.
People say it is very complex. Yes, but complex, so what? It's chemistry. If we know how our gut microbes transform any compound into any compound, where the compound happens to be a food or it can be a drug, it gets metabolized by our microbiome and it converts into a molecule based on its own. So basically, think of our gut microbiome as a series of chemical reactions.
Right.
And that's very predictable. So in a sense that, now, why is it that certain drugs have different side effects on different people? Is because those drugs get metabolized by different people in their gut very differently. In fact, here's a very interesting one, that there is a drug called levodopa for Parkinson's. And in some people, the drug called L-dopa gets metabolized by gut microbiome into compound that actually has no effect on the Parkinson's. That means the microbes are eating the drug. Think about that for a second. Microbes eat the drug, and you can have all the drug in the world. It's not going to help anything. Now imagine if we can give them a right IV, if we can give them a right supplement and nutrients before they eat the levodopa, because the tyrosine is a compound that's produced by the gut microbiome that actually metabolizes the levodopa drug. What if we can absorb the tyrosine by some other nutrient, so you can take levodopa and now you can have actually drug work? So literally, not just even making the current drugs more effective, you can still personalize and make them individualized for each person. Same type of thing. What people don't realize is, there is a massive amount of people who are taking these anti-acidity drugs like PPI drugs, and $6 billion a year market. And I believe if you look at the use of PPI drugs and use of other chronic diseases, especially colorectal cancer and IBD and IBS, you're starting to wonder, is there a connection here? And we were just analyzing the data, in fact, 2 weeks ago, and we saw some very interesting stuff. The oral microbiome, there is a particular organism that is vastly present in almost every oral microbiome. But in the presence of that, when that microbiome doesn't get killed by the stomach acid because you're taking PPI drug and it starts to go into the gut, that microbe is now starting to cause the IBS, which is stomach pain, all the things from IBS symptom. Or as that bacteria becomes more and more active, it causes IBD. And then eventually, when it becomes really virulent, it causes the colorectal cancer. Now imagine, now you can have the vaccines for just that. Now, what if, another thing that most people may not realize, in the last 60 days, there are 2 research papers that came out. One was published in Nature, and one was in Cell. And both of them showed that they looked at 20 different types of tumors in the body. Breast tumors, they looked at the colorectal cancer, and they looked at the lung cancer, they looked at the kidney cancer, they looked at the prostate cancer, and they're starting to find that there is a unique microbiome inside the tumor. Think about that for a second. The microbes inside the tumor. Now, it is not, people say, oh, how can that be? But what's really happening is, as our gut becomes permeable, our gut microbes, and when we have a leaky gum, that means inflamed gum,
Mm-hmm.
guess what's happening? Now the oral microbiome is going into your blood.
Mm-hmm.
And when, by the way, this is also one of the paper that we just published last week on aging. And one of the top predictor of aging was our immune cell T cells,
Mm-hmm.
the CD8 T cells. What we saw was, as we age, our CD8 T cells are becoming less prolific and they're becoming exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a couple of reasons why that could be. What if it's happening because there is a low-grade chronic bacterial and viral infection coming from our gut and mouth? As
mm-hmm.
we are inflamed happening, our immune system cannot deal with that because a constant influx of this coming in. And then when immune system can't deal with that, they go to the blood-brain barrier, inflames that, and that becomes permeable. Now you have infection in the brain, and the glial cells are actually releasing the amyloid beta, trying to contain the infection, and it's causing the Alzheimer and dementia and Parkinson's. So if we start to think about when the organisms are there and immune system can deal with that, you get it go into the lung and every other
mm-hmm.
place. And now they form the symbiotic relationship with the local tissues there.
Yep.
And remember, these organisms are commensal. That means our immune system thinks they are good guys. They are part of us. So it doesn't attack them. So when they're inside the cancer tumor, cancer in body basic immune system say, "Ow, it's one of us," and let the cancer grow. In one case, in the pancreatic cancer in mice, this professor at NYU thought, wait a sec, there are all these organisms inside this pancreatic tumor. What if I inject the antibiotics directly into the tumor? It killed the bacteria. Guess what happened? Within days, the immune system killed the cancer. So basically, the organisms were protecting the cancer. Right? So imagine now, sooner or later, we will be able to, in fact, come up with a unique vaccine for each cancer, because there's a unique microbiome for every tumor that is protecting that tumor, because different microbes go into different organs where they actually form the symbiotic relationship. So you could have a vaccine for colorectal cancer, a vaccine for pancreatic cancer, a vaccine for these. And ultimately, what if we can, before we even go there, what if we can strengthen our gut lining to begin with, strengthen our oral hygiene, so there is never the leakage. So you can prevent it from happening,
right.
But people who have already gone down that path, they can have a vaccine to reverse it. But our goal would be that our children and grandchildren never, ever have cancer. So in my opinion, in a decade or so, our grandkids are going to look at you, say, Grandpa, in your days, people were dying from these diseases. You mean people just didn't know what to do? You mean they just lost their memories and you thought it was okay? And people just had cancer and we gave them the rat poison and thought some magical thing was going to happen? What kind of people were you guys? It's like us thinking about people used to put leeches on them. It's like, oh my God, how gruesome. But that's what we do. When we put a rat poison in our body, it's no worse than putting a leech in our body.
I'd say leeches are actually probably more helpful than the rat poison. The rat poison is really deadly. Leeches, okay, you can still get through that, and there's some purpose on it too. But you're making so much sense here in that I find that the research is catching up to a lot of what we knew and probably understood. And we will look back one day, and I don't know if we'll call it barbaric, but we'll say, oh man, like you said, in a few generations, you used to do that, really, and you used to have these problems. And I agree that something that we've seen at the center a lot that goes completely unnoticed beyond the microbiome and dysbiosis in the gut is also localized infections in the gums or the teeth that constantly create a little bit of inflammation. Immune system is off, then the gut goes off, one or the other, and then you have a host of chronic diseases. And until you address that, you will always have it no matter what you do.
Agree.
So it's wonderful to see that.
So bringing it back, Casper. So here is what we are doing at Viome now.
Yeah.
So we help you analyze what is happening inside your gut. Again, remember going back to, we look at every gene expression. That means so there are two tests we do now. One is called gut intelligence test. One is called health intelligence test. Gut intelligence test looks at all the microbial activities in your gut. What I mean by that is we look at not what organisms are there, but are they producing LPS that is harmful? Are they producing too much sulfide? And if they're producing too much sulfide, we tell you don't eat broccoli or cabbage because they have very high amount of sulfate that's going to cause you more inflammation. Now, if we see that, hey, your microbes are producing a lot of ammonia, and we see the reason they're producing a lot of ammonia is because it's fermenting the protein. Now we have to go back and say you need to eat a digestive enzyme with your protein, or start to cut down that protein, or else you're going to continue to have inflammation in the gut. So we analyze everything that's happening in the gut, tell you what foods you should eat and why, especially for you. Why is it that food is good for you? Avoid this food, and we tell you why. So it says, don't eat tomato because you have a tomato virus in your gut. Don't do that. But you do need lycopene. So we're going to give you the lycopene as a supplement, but you don't need to eat tomato for that because tomato is going to cause you harm. Now, so that's a gut intelligence test. It is a test that measures all the gut stuff and tells you what food you need to eat and why, what food you need to avoid and why, and the supplements that you need, every single ingredient, every probiotic, every prebiotic, every food extract, vitamin, mineral, herbs. And guess what? In a precise dosage for you. And this is the first time in the human history where we are able to produce each capsule for each individual on demand right after the test.
That's an incredible feat, I have to say, Naveen, because I know about supplement production. And a lot of what we do here at the center is trying to be as specific, but finding the products that are closest. But you're going further and actually making the product for the person, which is even a level above that.
And nothing that you don't need. The beauty of the thing is everything you need and nothing that you don't need, because what happens is every time you give something so today the supplement or probiotic market is more things. And I think it's more, right? Oh, you got 10 strengths, I got 15 strengths. You got 200, I got 500, right?
Yeah, it's really becoming who has the most, right? It's billions and trillions, and
And answer is you need one strain, and guess what? Other 14 are going to harm you, so we only give you one. If you need 7, we give you 7. Right. And then we have a health intelligence test that not only looks at the gut, includes the gut intelligence test, but then it also looks at your blood, your host site, all of your cellular health, your mitochondrial health, by the way, immune health. That means all the cytokine markers. We're looking at all your stress response health, obviously your gut health, and your biological age. So we can tell you that you may be chronologically 48. Are you biologically 31 or 61, right?
A lot are 61, I think.
So interestingly, it's a magical number. I just turned 61 and my biological age is 49, right? So
that's wonderful.
So far, that's really good, right?
Happy 49 then.
And my hope is by the time I turn 70, I can reduce my biological age down to 39.
Go split it in half. Go 35, I say. I think you can do it.
But my point I'm trying to make is, so anyway, we do gut intelligence, health intelligence, and both cases we give you the recommendations. The interesting thing about health intelligence is we now know more about you. That means our recommendations are even more personalized and precise for you, because now we know exactly what the cytokines, what the inflammation in your body is. And by the way, all inflammation is not the same. So when people say, oh, I got inflammation, I just need to take anti-inflammatory drug. Guess what? You need to know what is causing that inflammation.
Of course.
Is it because of histamine pathway? So we look at the histamine pathway. We say, oh, really, you have some environmental allergies or food allergies. We need to take care of that. Versus, oh, your inflammation is being caused by oxidative stress and we need to take care of that.
Right.
Or your inflammation is being caused by the viral infection. Let's go take care of that. Or bacterial infection. Or, by the way, it is coming from gut. That means gut is releasing a lot of LPS and ammonia that is causing the inflammation. So unless you know what's the reason, you cannot fix the inflammation. It's not like, let's just suppress the immune system.
Right. So it's personalized nutrition meets personalized supplementation. Now, let me ask you really quickly, because I've done feasibility studies with nutrition and all these things. And we created our own supplement, Naveen, with NAD that took 2 years to make. And that's not personalized. It's just the best quality you can find, trying to find the right synergies for the most amount of people.
But NAD, you mentioned NAD. Let me just tell you something about NAD, Casper. Most people think NAD helps them live longer. What we saw was, in fact, NAD can be very harmful to you when you have a high cellular senescence or you have high oxidative stress. That's the last thing you want to take NAD. Right.
Well, yeah, it energizes. So a lot of patients that are on a lot of prescription drugs. It's actually not good. It's pushing too much of the toxicity and other things there. The oxidative stress is already too high. So yes, this is truthful that you have to be cognizant of who you are when you take it. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And by the way, we look at the cellular senescence, we look at oxidative stress. So we say, no, don't take NAD. It's not going to be good for you. Or do you really need it? Because you don't want to be increasing the mitochondrial biogenesis when you have high oxidative stress.
Yes, that is true. And some are there, others are not, but that's very dependent. And that's why I love what you're doing, because it's not a one size fits all. It's not you are this, then do this. It's who are you truly? And let's personalize it. And going back to my question, how difficult was that to get to this level where you have now the personalized supplementation? You just unveiled that, a month or so ago about?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago,
Yeah, I mean, an amazing feat. What kind of challenge was that? Was that just an incredible one, or did it just happen somehow?
So interestingly, our underlying technology for Viome came out of Los Alamos National Laboratory. There it was developed. It took them 10 years, some of the brightest minds, and it was the Department of Defense that God knows untold amount of money that went into it. And some of the brightest minds sitting inside the vault, that means they can't be seen, working on something like this. And we were fortunate enough to get the exclusive license for that technology to build Viome. So this is not something any one of us, any private company could have ever done. There's no amount of money to find those brilliant brains and 10 years to work on this problem, to solve this. So that we were very fortunate. And that's the reason we are so far ahead. No one has ever figured out how to do the RNA analysis of gene expression. Not a single company in the world. We are the only company that does that. And the second part is the robotics are challenging. I mean, now imagine we have 250 ingredients that we determine which 30, 40, 50 you need, depending. So that means, and we say you need 11 milligram from that one, 12 milligram from that, 7 milligram from that. All have to come in a precise dosage, and then they all have to go into these capsules, and they all get packaged on that day, and we say manufactured on, right? And it's made for you every month. So every month, if something changes about you, we adjust your supplement, and then we retest you. So the beauty of the thing is, so far, the supplements have been done on faith. I think when I take vitamin C and vitamin D, I'm helping myself. How do you know that? Well, I read somewhere, right? I read NAD helps me. I read this helps me. You don't know that. Is it going to work for you or not? In our case, before we cut, we measure it. That means we look at all your health markers and say, here is where things are. Then we say, here is what you need. And guess what? And then we retest you to say, oh, look, all these change now. So measure, nourish, improve. And unless you can show people that everything they're doing is actually helping their underlying health markers, so not only you have more energy, you're sleeping better, you're losing weight, you have better digestion, no bloating, no pain in the stomach. All that is great. But you want to be able to show people that even like inflammation, how do you feel inflammation? Right. Unless it's really bad.
The markers
and you say, oh my,
show it.
Markers is the only way. Otherwise, the only time you see inflammation is you got some serious disease like my joints hurt. Right?
And that's really awesome, because I do believe a lot of times what companies like to do is only focus on some sort of evidence or something like that and prove that. But you're also saying experience is worthy also. We all say that in medicine. I could show you markers are going well, but if you feel like crap, then, it's probably not the best result for you. But if I could match your experience of feeling very well to the evidence that shows the markers have reduced or improved, that's the holy union that we should be aiming for. And you're doing that with personalized kind of nutrition with the supplementation, which is amazing because, again, it empowers and it's showing both sides of the coin, not just one or the other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Casper, I'm so glad that someone like you in this world exists that is dedicating their life to making people feel better rather than simply suppressing their symptoms so they keep coming back to you. So my hats off to your dad and you for building this business, finding the best technologies and the best things that are out all over the world. Because, these cultures were, been around for thousands of years. They have learned a lot through trial and error. And these, old Chinese medicine, the Indian medicine, all over the world in Africa. I mean, these guys have been doing this for a long time. They don't have a clinic that cuts you open and treats people. They got drugs for that. They give them the natural medicine. So my point is, I'm so glad someone like you is doing it. And I'm so glad, you believe in this personalization. And I'm glad to be a part of your journey, part of your mission. And I'm so glad that you're part of our mission and what we're doing together. Hopefully, everyone listening to it is going to go sign up for Viome and actually come to your clinic and essentially get this personalized care that they deserve.
Absolutely. I mean, the feeling is mutual. I think we are on the same paths and doing this thing that is pushing the envelope of what is possible these days in medicine and health and wellness, longevity, all these so important things, really. I can't think of anything else that is much more important than health, longevity, how we feel as a society coming together in a healthy way. And speaking of pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries, I know one of your goals is to go to the moon. And how is that coming along for you? And tell me if you've ever seen the movie Moon with Sam Rockwell, because I found that to be fascinating. And I kind of want to go to the moon now too. But how is your quest to go to the moon going?
Well, the point is, it is going to happen, but whether we do it or someone else does it.
Sure.
There is no doubt that in the next decade or so, we will be starting to live on the moon. And in the next 20 years, we're going to have a child born on the moon. And they're going to look back up and they're going to say, we come from that planet, right?
Yeah. I mean, you called it the eighth continent today in your Instagram post I saw, right? That will be awesome, adding a new continent at some point.
Yeah. And I think, it's going to be no different than people living in Sydney. And it's going to take no longer than going just from here to the moon on one day, then it's going to Sydney. You're going to be connected. Instead of internet, you might have an intergalactic net. Who knows?
This is amazing talk for me as a traveler, and I've done that Sydney flight, and it does feel like you're going to another planet. I can't wait, and I so applaud you for these, what some people would say, audacious goals, but I just think you're a great dreamer, and you don't believe in those limitations. And I have to say that kind of approach should be what we take towards medicine and health. There aren't limitations. Your body isn't limited to be sick. It has the power and is limitless to do whatever you can think. So I think that's a wonderful note to close this off on for everyone and feel uplifted that if we could go to the moon, which we will, we can heal ourselves from anything out there. So Naveen, thank you so much for coming on. This has been wonderful, uplifting. I want everyone to go to Viome. Everyone do this because this is the right step to taking control of your health and preventing disease in the long run. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Casper. Look forward to working with you.